Loud. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever time you're watching this. I am always so excited to be talking to my friend Stefanos. We were just talking, and we want more heart-centered masculine men present here in these live streams that you're scrolling through on Facebook. So we decided to connect, and we just weren't intelligent enough to figure out how to split screen a live Facebook video. So we decided to post it here on Zoom. Anyway, welcome guys. And we have nothing planned. We haven't discussed what we're going to talk about, but when Stefanos and I are talking, we never have a shortage of talk about. And there's not a shortage of anything to talk about on the planet these days, right?
And that's for sure.
Yeah. And God, how important it is to bring some lightness, laughter, and brevity. For it really is a very high vibration, very high vibration. I haven't been seeing too many comics right now out about talking, but I'm sure it's coming. But anyway, yeah.
Probably a little bit too, they probably feel it's a little bit too early for them just yet.
Don't know. But try to laugh it up. Yeah. So, yeah, what do you just why don't you start saying something, and I'll say something, and that's how a conversation goes, right?
Pretty much. I'd like, I think what's important is we start as to why we're here. And I think one of the reasons why we're here is because you eloquently put it before in our conversation about, there's a lot of people, and I'm sure there are people doing lives together and speaking together, but there's probably less than there are more. And I think that's important. And your comment was, well, why don't we get together and do a live? And instead of doing it alone, so I'm doing a lot of stuff on my own. You're doing a lot of stuff on your own as well. Instead of doing it on our own, just do it together and have some presence in that space. And I think we're all of us that are in the space of cultivating and building awareness with respect to what's happening, adversity, right? Unknown, uncertainty, challenge, etc. We're all speaking to, okay, let's come together. Let's band together. Let's be more inclusive. Let's jump into the collective. These are maybe more feminine energetics, so to speak. And yet we're still doing it from that place of being alone or being that lone wolf. And there's nothing wrong with that. There comes a time where I think we've just done it excessively too long. I think we've been too independent instead of interdependent in our world for too long. And I think we're either really independent or we're really codependent in our world. And so we're moving to extremes, and we're looking at what's happening in the world today. And I know I'm sort of touching on various conversations here, but it's the state of the world where we are today, right, Aaron? Like, there's so much complexity. There's so many layers to what we're witnessing and experiencing. And I did a live on this the other day where I spoke to, I feel what's really needed in the world right now is a balance of masculine and feminine energy, or a balance of contrasted energies. And it looks like real transparent leadership. And, from a masculine perspective, it looks like getting some structure into our world, into our collective, into our individual lives as well, whether it's routines, whether it's something else. And then having this compassion and empathy and interconnectedness and inclusivity at a deeper level, which I think is more of a feminine energetic, and coming into that balance. And I also think that we should share a little bit about, the conversation we had before this, because I think that's really important for people to hear in terms of how you and I address that, and the balance that we took, and the deep respect and reverence and love for each other as well, and how we then choose to show up and take ownership of our roles in that. Because I think, brother, that plays a bigger part into, and it contributes into what's happening at a collective level. Like, we hear certain people, certain individuals that are of tremendous power and leadership in this world saying, oh, this is the Chinese virus, or this is the China virus. And there's an ignorance about that, right? And there's this blame and projection and shame that's taking place. And then other people are blaming other people. So, whoa. Where is that energy getting us? Where is that attention getting us, blaming each other? Can we come up with some serious solutions, right? And so I think at an individual level, at a smaller microscopic level, at a micro level, these conversations that we had before we jumped on this video call now, I think these are the conversations that we need to be having as a collective, right? But it begins with us.
Yeah. That's what I love, is like you touched on about 30 conversations and we're like, we have 25 minutes. I know. Yeah.
That's why we're never short.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. When I think the primary thing here that is really on the spotlight for us on the planet right now is just how much how much we cannot be alone if we're not independent from one another.
Yeah.
Like if there's really one big, huge lesson here is how deeply and intimately we are all connected. What something happens on the other side of the world affects us.
Yep.
That this started on the other side of the world and it's directly impacting the entire world. That we are that connected, and the days of us trying to believe we can stay isolated from the world or that's happening over there, it doesn't affect us. War over there isn't having an impact on us. We are so interdependent on one another that this is the wake-up call. And like you said, how do we manage that now? How do we become into right relationship to that? How do we join and unify a foundational feminine energetic of unity, of community, of compassion, of loving allowance, patience, these beautiful feminine qualities that are inside every one of us, along with creating and building new structures that support that and allow for us to create all new structures, whether it's political, economical, and all of these things that we're going to need both energetics to do. And I love, and what we were discussing, I think it was a microcosm of that, of being willing to be honest, to be open, willing to connect and understand one another, take responsibility for our triggers, for our own wounds and things like that. And to know that we are actually stronger, we are actually more connected now than we were just an hour ago.
Oh, deeply. And what you're speaking to, you mentioned many feminine energetics there. And I think a big part of that as well is, you brought up earlier about consistency and integrity in word and structure and that consistency and that stepping into that very genuine posture of this is what I'm saying and this is what I'm going to do, and then maintaining that transparency. That's really needed now as well. And there's this combination, this balance that we need to move into. And so Aaron and I were having a conversation about, I've been distracted of late, and these aren't excuses, and they're not justifications, they're reasons. And I've been distracted of late, and as a result, I haven't paid attention to some key relationships that are really important to me in my life. And part of that is the unconscious drive of, it's a close relationship. It's this knowing, this unconscious knowing, it's a close relationship. I can, quote unquote, neglect it, or I can keep pushing it to the side, or whatever it may be. And Aaron brought up to me saying, hey, Steph, I've noticed that you sort of haven't been in your word a couple of times or a few times on certain things. And I stepped back as he was speaking to that, and I had to take ownership of that. And I think that's something that we don't do enough of in our world, is we don't take ownership of where we could just be doing better in life, where we could be. And he didn't call me out in a way that was judgmental. He didn't shame me. So he didn't tell me I was wrong. He in fact, before, and I'll let Aaron speak for himself, of course, but before Aaron even mentioned anything about me, he preluded the whole conversation about him, and not to make it a selfish or egotistic way. He said, here are my lessons. Here's what I need to work on. Here is my big thank you to you for highlighting this for me. And here's what I'm noticing. And I get goosebumps when I talk about this, because the goosebumps comes from the closeness that we have, that we can sit in a conversation that, honestly, it wasn't uncomfortable for me, but, could very be, and it wasn't uncomfortable because how much love we have and how he approached the conversation. And it could have been super uncomfortable. And I had to sit there and say, you know what, Aaron, I've told you a few times that I'm going to connect with you, or I'm going to do this, and I haven't done it. And that's the fucking truth. And here's why. It's not an excuse, but I want to take ownership of that. And I apologize for that. And here's what my commitment is to you. And here's why I'm noticing I've probably done that. And I mentioned the unconscious piece before, that I made conscious, so I can be aware of it now and take action on that. And the other piece is the subtle tendency of when I was a child, you know, wanting to make everybody happy and thinking that my bandwidth is more than what it fucking is, right? And then really the brunt of that being felt by my loved ones, whether it's Aaron or whether, because I've noticed this pattern with other friends as well and other close ones to me. And I'm almost like in this, not survival. I don't feel like I'm coming from fear or survival, but I've just had a lot on the last few months, but that's not an excuse to not be in my word and speak my truth. And that was what was highlighted for me. And so that conversation not only brought us closer from my perspective, but it gave us both an opportunity to work on some stuff that, hey, we're alive. We're always going to be growing. We're always going to be working on shit. That's part of the human condition, right? And then now we're having a broader conversation about, well, how do conversations like that, how do interactions like that actually lend themselves at a more profound level to what's happening in the collective?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah, the conversation from me was that it's a wound that I've had for my life with kind of wanting to rely on a brother like friendship and, you know, taking them at their word and that solidity and that trust. That's a big word for me. Trust in my brother that, you know, his word is like rock. And if we're in the trenches together and he says he's going to stick there, like we're there. So my wounding comes from my own childhood and with my own brother, that wasn't there and available for me. And when it gets played out in my friendships and relationships, it brings it up, and it brings it up for me to look at. I definitely went in story about it. And I watched myself go into the story about it and said, nope, this is mine. It's mine to have. I will clear it with Stefanos. And when we look to clear that, like when I got on the call with you, you know, there's always that vulnerability of, you know, he could be like, hey man, the fucking world's falling apart. I'm busy. I just moved. Like, I don't have time for that. Or it's not, you know, I just can't deal with it. And that there is a possibility of more of this rather than coming together. But I hold, and I know that he holds my transformation and my authenticity really high. And I was willing to risk that because how much I care about him and our relationship. And I care about the integrity of the work that we do out in the world and that we are walking the talk as much as we possibly can. And that's that I'm doing my work and Stefanos is doing his work, and together there's just a greater trust. And, you know, for me, our word is our frequency. It's our vibration. You know, the word in the beginning was the word. Everything begins and or originates from a vibrational frequency, and it slowly turns into light, and light turns into matter. So our word is really our power. And when we continually stay out of alignment with what we're saying and what our actions are, we're diffusing our power. And none of us can be pristine. We're not meant to be pristine like 1000% of the time. But when we recognize it, we bring it back into integrity by presencing it. Hey, I recognize I was out of my integrity or out of my word, you know, on this. Or if we can't meet up and I said, you know, or, you know, I said 2:00 and I'm not there until 2:15, you know, you could always call and say, I'm running, it's going to be 2:15. You can update your word. That's the cool thing, is you can presence and always update and presence and put it in the now, your word, and stay in alignment, stay in integrity. So through our conversation, through us both like just recognizing how beautifully we're, our patterns and woundings can support one another, we had a deep conversation, a deep connection, and I have more trust for you now and more connection and love for you right now, you know, which is beautiful.
Likewise, man. And you know, I thank you for all of that. And to add another layer to that, I think this is the deep work. I think this is what the world needs right now. It's this level of processing our internal stuff so we don't become reactive and make irrational decisions within our own selves, within our family dynamics, communities, our greater collective. And I think that whilst all those things are true, yeah, I have a lot on at the moment. I have had for a few months. That shouldn't excuse me being out of my word. And it just shouldn't. And if I choose to ignore that, then I choose to perpetuate a behavior that doesn't suit me, ultimately in alignment with my clear values, doesn't suit my relationships, and it causes more harm than health. And so that's the humbling, the humility that we have an opportunity, I think, to really step into now. And this is why I mentioned that before about why are we all blaming each other where we use the virus as an example, where the virus came from. It's fucking irrelevant right now. It may be relevant later. It may be very relevant later when we're more calm, when we aren't in an emergency base or crisis situation. We're looking for things to blame and distract us from what's really present. I think what's really present is this deeper work of acknowledgement and ownership and transparency. And that's us coming into a greater healthy collective masculine energy, while simultaneously we're looking at being more inclusive, coming together as nations, collaborating and thinking, how can we assist each other? We are so interconnected. Technology does that. There are other modalities that we've utilized as a humanity over the last few hundred years, particularly, to be able to achieve that level of connectedness. Yet we all act like we're not. That's the interesting thing, right? But, germs and viruses and whatever it is, they don't have borders. These borders are an arbitrary fucking cultural term. The wind doesn't have a border. There's no, it's just like, this is how connected we are. And we are bound to our environment, our ecology, our physical ecology. And so again, I think the microcosm of these conversations and the trust that we're building here with us, within us, you and I specifically, because this is just a specific conversation that's come up, it helps me look at other areas of my life where, and it's not easy, man. It's not necessarily easy. It is vulnerable, and it is daunting a little bit, because I now get to choose and say, well, where else am I being out of integrity in my life? In what other relationships, or even the relationship with myself, where I'm promising myself I'm going to do something or be there for myself. And let me be clear, for the vast majority of the time, I am in integrity. However, do I want to be in integrity as often as possible, or do I not want to care about, the word and the deed matching and mirroring? And so the opportunity is to look at, for me personally, is to look at the other areas of my life where there's a similar energetic that's taking place, and making a move and taking action to shifting that.
Yeah. I think that's really important, is that no one could be 100% in integrity 100% of the time.
Yeah.
Because that's where self-compassion comes in, which is a very high vibrational way of being. That's where, our opportunities come actually to get more awake. So we can almost welcome when we discover, oh, I've been out of integrity. I have been incongruent with what it is I am declaring with my word and my actions. Because like you said, this is the opportunity for transformation, opportunity for awareness, and those are incredibly invaluable. So it's not about being perfect. It's just about getting aware and conscious. And like you said, the person that's getting hurt the most really is you, because you do hold yourself in a very empowered, powerful way, and you want to be aware of all those places that are keeping you maybe smaller than who you are. And the same for me. So I love unraveling. I love when I'm questioning, or someone's questioning, my action or my word. For the most part, I won't say I never get reactive, but when it's coming from a place of presence, which I feel we engaged in this conversation before we hopped on this Zoom, it's like, I'm all in, I'm there. I want that, like you said, it came from a place of self-responsibility. I'm feeling triggered. I'm feeling this wound, and you're beautifully bringing it up to me. And we were able to just go in from that place, Instead of that reactive pointing the finger and blaming someone for the way you're feeling, it never works. It never creates the connection. And of course, that's where we're going to go. Most likely, there'll be a big backlash on China because everybody's perception is that this, began in Wuhan. It really began with the way in which they, in Wuhan and many places in China, mix and commingle specific types of animals that aren't meant to be commingling, which allow for viruses to jump from animal to human. It's a whole other conversation, one I would love to unpack, but it's the same thing. It's such a delicate balance, man. We're so connected and everything is so interwoven with each other that when we break the integrity of that, like, it's just a domino effect. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, it is, and it the domino effect often isn't actually seen until it becomes something quite grand, quite at the macro level, right? And I think again, the opportunity for us as a humanity is to choose how we want to be during this time, and this time of what is potentially can be a crisis. Maybe we are already in a critical crisis point. I don't know enough about what's going on in the world. There is so many mixed messages out there. It's like fucking eggs. 1 minute eggs are good for you, the next minute they're not. Like you just don't know, at the moment. And so I think the most important thing that we can do is be calmly prepared as possible. I think we need to band together and research exactly how to combat this, or how to deal with it, how to maybe have it as an integration in our lives. And at the same time, pockets of leadership, global leadership, I think it's imperative that they're also looking at, and this can be leadership from the individual, the sovereign individual that's just part of a community. You don't have to be a head of government or head of a large corporation. However, we are also looking at where are the holes, where are the gaps in our social structures right now, where are the gaps in our society, geopolitically, socioeconomically, because we have gaps and they're being exposed. People right now are suffering more from the economic backlash of the decisions that we're making to shut everything down, as opposed to the virus itself at the moment, as far as we are aware. I could be wrong.
No, I mean, brother, it is not about the virus. It is not about the virus. When we talk about the crisis is us. We are the crises. We are the ones who began hoarding food. We're the ones who have been going into fear. We're the ones who are creating this economic shutdown and meltdown. We are the ones causing all of this because of where we have been vibrating at, where we have been holding ourselves. And we are absolutely the cause of this effect, as with pretty much everything, right? And the main thing is like, it's not about the virus, because it's really an opportunity to see how we respond. And what I mean by that is we are like being told to social distance, shut down, lock down, stay inside, and we're shutting everything down. And it's like, when do we think somebody's then going to say, okay, now it's okay to come back outside. It's safe. You're safe. There's no more viruses. There's no more germs out there. There's no more opportunity to get the flu or get the influenza, a cold. Like, that's not going to happen. What's being called for us is to trust our power, our integrity, our ability to listen to our own intuition, because when it begins to get to feel like we're actually being suppressed rather than kind of protected, the crises is becoming that, we're going to have an opportunity to trust what's in our own belief system, what's really present for us, and how that wants us to go out into the world and change something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like we can go into this stillness so long as it's an opportunity for us to deepen our connection to who and what we are.
Yeah. And I think part of that is part of those holes and gaps that I was speaking to earlier was this arrogance or sense of entitlement, or this illusion that we have, this delusion that we have, that we think we are immune to anything and everything as a humanity. And this invisible thing, it's invisible to the naked eye, a virus,
Right.
is shutting us down in various ways, not only our physical health as well, okay, and our physical wellness, physiological wellness, but it's shutting us down economically because of the choices we're making. These are the holes, these are the gaps that we haven't mitigated, we haven't prepared for. Because now we're not only shutting down economically, but there's the domino effect of that. Many businesses going out of business, livelihoods being damaged. Now I understand that life versus livelihood. I mean, you're probably going to choose life, of course. And people are suffering in various ways. People are hurting, committing suicide, not knowing where they're going to get money from that then feeds their families and shelters their, provides shelter at home. There is so much to this, way beyond this conversation right now, and I'm sure we'll have more. However, it's highlighting our arrogance and
our fragility.
Yeah, and our fragility simultaneously.
Yeah, yeah. We're the greatest, biggest superpower on the planet. Yeah,
and?
not really, because we have such a huge Achilles heel. No one saw this coming, and no one was prepared, like you said. And it is going to impact on every single level of our life and on the planet. And that is awesome. It's scary. And it could very well be the one thing that allows for us to really create a sustainable shift moving towards a new future and a new way of being and what we value in life. Yeah. Because recognizing we are all connected and we are all so vulnerable to how one responds. The food crisis, the shortages of lack of food, like that's all created from us.
Yeah, like inefficient systems of distribution and production, and
well, not only that, it's like the belief that we needed to hoard, the belief going back that I got to take care of myself.
Yeah,
I got caught into it too. When I first went to Whole Foods and I saw somebody taking like 3 bags of rice, I'm like, oh, that's what's happening.
Maybe I need to do that too.
Exactly, and I stopped myself because I was just about to. Yeah. But if everyone was just still like, just take what you need right now, it's all going to be fine. There's not a food shortage right now. There's not a toilet paper shortage right now. Just continue on.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We wouldn't, but we created and sourced it. So I'm excited of what's going to emerge from this. And I know it's going to take leaders, a new form of leadership. Governments aren't going to do this for it. They're going to try to get everything back to normal.
Back to what it was.
Yes.
Normal defined as what the past was, but I don't know if the past is going to serve us. And so we need some new paradigms. We need multiple paradigms working simultaneously that are an evolved version of where we were. What that exactly looks like, I'm actually not sure. And I don't think it's for us to be sure right now, but I think it warrants a very sincere exploration, genuine exploration. I think that's where we're at.
Yes, and these collective conversations that I look forward to doing more of and bringing more people in. But then we're going to get to go at some point beyond the conversation. And what's going to happen then? Because the real impact and the real change that we want, man, it's not going to happen digitally.
No, and it's going to come with challenges and some pain. And I think we have to be ready to be resilient enough to transition through that pain.
We have to be joined together, arm in arm. Yeah,
absolutely. That's one of the ways that we'll actually be more resilient. Yeah.
Because what could blow your mind is, what if this somehow led to a worldwide power grid outage?
Which could very well happen.
It could very well happen. Then what do we do? How do we connect, communicate? How do we join together? Yeah. So anyway, brother, I hold you high. I love you. You're a powerful, inspiring man. thank you for being open and receiving our conversation this morning. And I look forward to having more of these with you.
Definitely, brother. I love you, and it's received and mirrored right back to you. Thank you so much for you.
Thank you, brother. I will send this to Facebook and share it with as many we can.
Beautiful.
All right, brother. I'm gonna